Europe's historic landscapes are covered with tiny clues about ways of life that have long since disappeared. Finding these ancient clues is a major challenge. But when we do uncover something, each piece of evidence has its own stories to tell and helps build up an ever more accurate picture of what it was like to live hundreds or even thousands of years ago. No one will ever be totally sure what medieval Europe was like. But if you put all the clues together, you begin to get a feel of how it might have been.
Good day, croeso. Welcome to our village. Though I must confess you do find this upon hard times, God has been angry it seems, and has caused many thousands of our countrymen to be struck down with a great pestilence. But praise be to God and to my lucky charm, he has seen fit to spare me. 5 and 10, 15 years now we've been fighting with a friend. Ah, how now, Master Reeve?
Now!
Good day, Master Reeve. I was just upon my way to see you.
Good day, mate.
Indeed, indeed.
Now.
Every medieval village had a strict social hierarchy, known as the feudal system. At the top of the pile was the lord. He owned and ruled the entire village. But as he often lived elsewhere, he'd employ a bailiff and a reeve to act as his managers. The reeve was usually elected by the other villagers. He was a freeman. In other words, someone who'd earned the right not to have to work for the lord of the manor. The rest of the people in the village were peasants like Caradog, sometimes called serfs or villains. They not only had to work for the lord of the manor, but would have to ask permission to marry or even leave the village. Each villain in the village had to do about 3 days' work per week for the lord of the manor, but this would vary according to the seasons and the lord's mood. During harvest time and other busy periods, they'd have to work all the time. A few of the luckier serfs would be given special responsibilities. The swineherd was in charge of the lord's pigs and was one of the few serfs who might be paid for his work. Like the other villains, in return for doing the lord of the manor's dirty work and making sure his table was always full of food, his family would be allowed to farm strips of land to grow a little bit of food for themselves. The land around the village was usually divided into 3 fields. These fields were subdivided into strips called furlongs. Each family would farm a number of different strips to make sure they had a share of good and bad land. This pattern of land use has left an imprint which can still be seen in many parts of Europe today. With many of the men having to work for the lord of the manor, farming the family land was mainly left to the women. Each family had to grow enough food to feed themselves all year round. Potatoes and carrots were yet to arrive in Europe, so the main vegetable crops were turnips, parsnips and beans. Most families would also grow fruit like apples, pears, blackberries and raspberries, but the majority of their land would be given over to wheat and barley, used to make their staple foods, bread and ale. Without machines to help them, life on the land was hard, and everything from fetching water to cutting corn had to be done by hand. Some tools did exist, but they were extremely basic. With only a blunt wooden spade, digging over even a small plot of land meant hours of back-breaking work. The most important tool in the village was the plough, but only the lord of the manor and the wealthiest peasants would be lucky enough to own one. It was pulled by an ox, but like the other tools was mostly made of wood and needed constant maintenance. Looking after the lord's plough was considered an important task. The ploughwright would often be paid a small salary, as well as getting other fringe benefits, like oil to clean his shoes. In addition to growing crops, most families would also have a few animals. Chickens and geese were kept for their eggs and were allowed to wander freely round the village. Sheep and goats grazed on the common land next to the village and were used to provide wool and milk. With scrawny animals, few tools and endless back-breaking work, it's hardly surprising that medieval farmers could only produce about 1/5 of what a farmer cultivates today on the same amount of land. And food shortages were extremely common. Each family would also have to give the church 1/10 of everything they produced. This was known as a tithe and was an extremely unpopular tax. In many villages, the tithe barns used to store the tax can still be seen today.
Good day. I'm off to the baker. Griffith is his name, a notorious character. Do you know he's the only person allowed to bake bread in our village? Anyone caught baking bread themselves would be branded, you see. Most uncomfortable crime, and indeed the punishment to fit. But I have pandamain and painmain, the finest white. Let's see if he is in.
Many of the foods we take for granted were yet to arrive in Europe. With no potatoes or rice to eat, bread was the staple food. Each family would grow their own wheat and then get it ground down in the mill. As with everything else in the village, the mill was owned by the lord of the manor, and the peasants would have to pay to use it.
Indeed, indeed. And when shall I come and collect my loaf?
Oh, 4 hours.
4 hours, yes. Splendid. Just enough time for when the tavern opens, I fear. I thank you, baker.
Good idea.
The baker also paid the lord of the manor for the right to be the only person in the village allowed to make bread. With no competition, the baker could do more or less whatever he wanted. Sometimes they'd keep the best flour for themselves and put anything from dirt to ground acorns in its place. It's hardly surprising that the baker was often one of the most despised people in the village. Once they'd been kneaded and left to rise, the round balls of dough were placed in a specially built oven. Like all the land and other buildings in the village, the ovens were owned by the lord of the manor. The baker would pay him rent, usually by providing bread for the lord's table. These ovens would also be used to dry corn and smoke meat and fish. Once cooked, the bread would be taken out of the oven using a wooden paddle. The finest white bread was made from sifted flour and called pandamain. But most villagers had to make do with the brown loaves called maslin. Whichever kind of flour they had, the main problem for people like Caradog was quite simply how to pay the baker.
Hello, baker, I have come to collect my bread.
Nothing, Craig. Well, your bread is all prepared for
Oh,
you.
splendid. I shall just go and take it then.
No, I'm afraid you can't.
Indeed.
You owe me money.
Oh, but, yes, of course, money. Now, where did I put it?
Although money existed, in rural areas, most people would have paid by barter. This meant trading produce in return for goods and services.
For the bread I baked you today.
Yes,
Each
but perhaps
person's
if you do,
accounts were
do-
recorded on a tally
Perhaps we
stick.
could come to some arrangement on this.
I expect we can.
I
Because I
do.
cannot supply you any more until you pay.
Look, cut to the chase, baker. What do you wish?
Well, let me think. You owe me about 8 pence. I believe your lucky charm is valued at about that.
You cannot be serious. My
Yes.
my lucky charm is worth at least 20 of your loaves.
I'll tell you what. Let me have the charm. It covers your debts. If you can find me the money by the end of the month, you can buy it back.
Okay. I shall loan this charm to you then, on the basis
Thank
I
you.
shall pay my bill upon the end of the month.
And I will split your stick.
Ah, splendid, splendid, splendid. Always
Splitting
best
the
to keep a
stick
receipt,
meant
I
the
fear,
account
when
had
one has
been
paid the
settled.
price.
Each person would then
Most
keep
kind,
half
most kind.
to act as a receipt.
Splendid, then I shall no doubt see you before the end of the month, but I will come and collect my charm upon the end of the month. Thank you, baker.
You do that. Nice doing business with you.
The law
The medieval diet was extremely limited. Bread was eaten at every meal. Supper was the main meal of the day and consisted of a thick soup called pottage made of vegetables and beans. Occasionally, people would have meat, but they weren't allowed to eat it on Wednesdays, Fridays or Saturdays. The church ordered that these were fast days. Fish, however, was allowed and became a vital part of the diet, especially for those living near the coast. In peasant homes, women did all the cooking. The fire filled the house with smoke, but by sitting on low tables and benches, people could avoid the worst of it. Even a simple meal would take a long time to prepare, so making supper would begin early in the afternoon. The pots were made from thick iron. The cutlery was usually pewter, but sometimes made from bone. And if you've ever wondered where the expression "a square meal" came from, you need only look at the shape of the wooden plates. Tea and coffee were yet to arrive in Europe, so people lived on milk and ale. This was made from barley and drunk by everyone, including young children. With such a poor diet, most medieval people suffered from malnutrition. But if life was hard for everyone, it was particularly tough on women.
Was how to kill more French. Ah, good day, mistress.
Good day.
Do you wish to have company on your walk?
Not this day.
Indeed. God's blood. Well, I cannot understand it. A good dowry I have, a most domesticated man. I have 2 goats, a cow and a chicken. No, yet the chicken, just 2 goats and a cow. Is it perhaps I have not my lucky charm that I have now founded upon stony times? If only I had that lucky charm.
If peasant men like Caradog had little say in life, then peasant women had even less. Girls were considered to be their father's property until they were married, and then ownership passed to their husband. Most had little say, and marriage by the age of 12 was quite normal. Besides helping look after the family crops, women would also gather firewood, berries and other food from the land around the village. In medieval times, much of Europe was covered with woodland, but this didn't mean that you could just take as much as you wanted. Each family had to pay the lord a penny a year for the right to collect firewood. Cutting down trees was strictly forbidden without the lord's permission. Gathering firewood was extremely time-consuming, so families would try to burn as little wood as possible. Women were also in charge of the house. Above all, this meant making sure it was kept clean. Something of a challenge, as most families would have to share their home with the animals which were brought in at night. The houses had mud floors. These would be swept every day and then covered with scented grasses to try and keep the animal smells down to a minimum. Any furniture was considered a valuable possession and would be well looked after. A typical peasant family might have a trestle table and benches for eating and drinking, a chest or wardrobe to store clothes, and if they were lucky, a bed complete with a mattress stuffed with straw. Women also made the clothes. Most peasants were too poor to buy cloth, so they'd have to spin it themselves. Women wore long woolen dresses called kirtles, and over-the-knee stockings, which were also made from wool. Underneath the kirtle, they had linen shirts called shifts. Clothes were extremely costly to make, so even wealthy peasants like the Reeve would only have a small number of garments. Men wore woolen doublets. This was a kind of waistcoat, tied up with leather laces or points. In summer, they wore straw hats to protect them from the heat whilst working in the fields. In winter, thick felt hoods would keep out the cold. Like the women, the men had linen underclothes. These would be washed every day. Instead of trousers, they wore woolen hose, a kind of loose-fitting stocking that could be rolled down when they were working. But the most important item of clothing was the jacket. This gave an indication of a person's status. The poorest peasants would have plain cloth and leather laces to do it up. Wealthier ones would have pewter buttons and fine embroidery. Felt jackets also kept out the cold during the winter months. But for most medieval people, catching a cold was the least of their worries.
Master Reeve, a word with you, sir. It transpires it is not the tavern, mark you, but I'm not feeling the best of health.
No, I don't think you get proper diseases. I think you get a disease of the laziness.
Oh.
And what you should really do is get down to the church, see the priest, and get on your knees and do some praying.
I do hope it's not my lucky charm.
But, Caradog, I am not interested whether you are ill or not. I expect those sheep to be sorted out this evening.
But
I'm not interested. Go! Go!
I fear God has been angry with me. He has sent many afflictions upon my body and sent me demons in the night. I do hope it is not the great pestilence, for I am suffering much. And I do have the village leech, the herbal woman, with me, and she has asked me to give her a sample of my ailments. But I do believe it is down to the fact I have given the baker my lucky charm.
Now then, Caradog.
Medieval people had little medical knowledge and believed that sickness was a punishment from God.
I am most feverish,
Diseases like
mistress.
smallpox, bubonic and pneumonic
yes.
plague were rife.
Several times.
The Great Plagues of 1348 swept across Europe and in Britain killed 1 in 4 people. With little medical knowledge, diseases were usually diagnosed using basic techniques: feeling the pulse, looking at a person's tongue and checking their urine.
It is not Mad Dog.
No,
I have not been to the tavern.
There is definitely something. I think you can have that back. Now, if I just check your pulse, I think perhaps a spring tonic.
Feeling my hand, mistress, will that do any good for me? I feel you need to lay your hand upon my soul.
I don't think you're ready to join the angels or the devils quite yet. If I go and mix
Yes,
you
please.
a potion.
Would you not wish to take this?
No, you can keep that.
As long as she doesn't put a leech upon me, I don't mind.
Every village would have a herbalist who would cultivate medicinal plants in a special garden. Science was still in its infancy, so their knowledge was handed down through the generations and based mainly on superstition and folklore. As a result, people thought that some herbs would only work if they were picked on magical days, like Midsummer's Eve.
Well, this is Alacampane. You know what this one's used for? This is for curing the bruises got from stumbling upon a hasty husband's miss. Now, I don't need to tell you who that one's for. Reeves' wife. Awful tip last week.
Surprisingly, some of the cures did actually work. Juice from the poppy flower was used to deaden pain. In fact, it contains morphine, which is still used as a painkiller in hospitals today. But most of the potions were completely useless. Lungwort was used to treat chest problems because its leaves were shaped like lungs, and lemon balm was thought to be a magic elixir that could cure just about anything.
Out of the way, mistress. But I'm not feeling...
But if knowledge about medicines was basic, then surgery was even more hit and miss. Travelling barbers acted as surgeons and would regularly perform all kinds of operations. These usually took place outside, where the light was better and the rest of the village could watch. Using only ale for anaesthetic, the surgeon would cut and saw the limb off and then seal the wound with a hot iron. With such poor medical knowledge, people often died of very basic illnesses, and the average life expectancy was just 30.
Are you in need of a hand?
No!
But if disease didn't get you, there were plenty of other ways to meet your end. With no police or national army to keep order, medieval society was extremely violent. For many villages, attacks were a constant threat. Coastal settlements like Cosmiston were a favourite target for small bands of marauders who'd sail up the coast looking for easy pickings. The skirmishes were extremely chaotic, and the invaders would try to steal as much as possible before setting fire to the village and making off again in their boats. But even if you escaped these attacks, you could well meet your fate at the hand of your own villagers. In the early part of the Middle Ages, innocence and guilt were decided by combat and ordeal. Nobles and wealthy people would be allowed to undergo trial by combat. All they had to do to prove their innocence was win a fight. The result had little to do with justice. But for most people accused of a crime, the only option was trial by ordeal. This technique was so brutal it was banned by the Pope in 1215. One method involved making the accused hold a red-hot iron bar. If the wound wasn't beginning to heal 3 days later, they were guilty. Another was to tie them up and drop them in a river. If they floated, they were guilty, and if they sank, they were innocent. As a result, many of those found innocent actually drowned.
Well, before the weighty matters of justice are dispensed with the reading of payment and fines, I believe we have a matter to settle with Master Caradog. There has been an accusation of theft laid against you, Caradog.
Theft, my lord?
Yes,
Surely not.
Yes, the accusation laid before me is the theft of one lucky charm from Master Griffith the baker. Come then, Caradog. You have been charged with this theft. What say you?
Trial by jury was introduced by Henry II in 1166. But although it seemed fairer, the system was still open to abuse. The Lord would oversee the so-called manorial court. Villagers acted as the jury, so the outcome often had more to do with a person's popularity than whether they'd actually committed the crime.
What say you, Walter?
In the stocks.
At least
Stocks
a week.
for him?
At least
A week is too harsh. A week is too
But if you were found guilty, the punishments were extremely severe.
3 days.
Thieves were whipped and even had their feet and hands cut off. Frequent offenders and anyone found guilty of murder would be hung on the gallows that stood outside each town. For minor crimes, people were fined and placed in the stocks. Here, they could be taunted, punched, and pelted with mud or dung. Looking back, the courts may have seemed chaotic and the punishments barbaric. But these courts remain the basis for our modern legal system. In fact, the more we discover about life in medieval Europe, the more we realise how much it's influenced and shaped our society today.